mentioned about CCUs and the outlay of 20,000 crores in and of itself, the statistical values, right? I'll give you a problem. That is, there is no cap on fossil fuels which are based on industrial growth. There are a number of problems. For example, the informal sector workers who are linked to conventional support and efficient systems, they haven't been able to go away from fossil fuel linked logistics and then integrate themselves into the EV battery and solar models they're talking about. Meaning that in the entire proposition case, when you have sustainable development, you cannot have intergenerational equity. When you have equity, you can't have climate development. And when you have climate development, you cannot go ahead and say that we are going to be developing an efficient system in and of itself. You have contradicted yourself in the entire 3 minutes what the speech you gave. Could you please justify?
So your question at the end of the day stands that if I want to have sustainability, I will have to fail intergenerational equity. Phrase your question.
I mean, is that what you heard?
No, I genuinely couldn't.
Right, I'll give you a right. You said CCU's outlay of 20,000 crores because that's the correct statistical data, right? A problem is that there is no current cap on fossil fuels based industrial growth. There is only technological capacity development. For example, for the decarbonization of the power sectors. Two problems there. One, that when you don't have this cap, there are informal sectors who are still, busy using the fossil fuels-based conventional systems, but they don't have the incentive or the subsidies to go ahead and integrate themselves into the risk mitigation factors or the EV battery and solar model jobs. So you don't care about marginalized workers, you don't care about middle-class families. Because if you did, then you would actively go for policy improvements to ensure equity as well as sustainable development.
If you can slow down with the accusations that I don't care about marginalized communities. It's a very simple matter of fact that today, when you're talking about CCUS, it essentially refers to the companies and the industries which are actually fossil fuel reliant. Mr. Sandeep Pondrik, who is the Secretary of the Ministry of Steel, yes, you can look it up, not an issue, has officially said that decarbonization and green steel will be the future and a policy is being introduced in 2026 itself. Second of all, when you say that marginalized communities do not have access to, and they do not have the incentives or the subsidies to access such places, I have to say West Bengal is the best example of it because I can assure and I think the audience will assure that today early morning, if I see blue collar workers, they are actually implementing and they are actually utilizing green motorcycles or electric motorcycles which are being subsidized by the manufacturers and they are effectively using it in their day-to-day transport. Maybe their quantification is not able to reach the eyes of the final ministry. Hence, you are able to make this argument at large. However, both of them go together and both of them are synonymous. It's not that both of them are alternatives to each other.
So I'll allow 30 seconds.
So Sir, the entire structure of his question was how exactly do you integrate the middle class, which is actually stipulated.
It was not his question.
No, sir. No, sir. Just a second. Sir, he highlighted, he gave example of EVs. Our question is the low-age earners that are actually using fossil fuels and equity that is driven. You are connecting that thing to someone who is using EV as a sort of decarbonization.
Not exactly
It is
EV
not
as well. Just a second. Normal bicycles, two-wheeler bicycles, which are being used by daily wage workers. In West Bengal, they have the highest amount of adoption, where they have adopted to an electric motor or a green vehicle motor. And it is present in all the sectors. You can see it in all the places you want to see that. When you're talking about, you cannot have 100% adoption on day one. If you understand that, that is where debate starts. Your general mistrust in the system cannot defy budget allocation.
Yes, sir. So we are totally agreeing to that 100% integration is not accepted and that we have to have a temperament to understand that.
Right.
But sir, understand what you are giving a connotation of EVs. We want to
I never mentioned
sir,
EV.
we are connecting Bharat to India. Understand it. When we talk about the speech and that question, sir, you are integrating that in entire EV. We are talking about how fossil fuels, sir, maybe we do on a day-to-day basis do not use fossil fuels. I am talking about integrating the people who are actually using it. And you are bringing your person, let's say that startup, we can say, how do we integrate that? That is the demarginalization, that's what the major outlook is in this entire project.
Last word.
Yes.
Last word, absolutely.
To answer the original question, the modified question, and the further argument, the question was on CCUS. CCUS is there for industries. You want to bring something else? I have answered on that also. For the point of academic debate, that is my answer. You can continue.
But sir, you highlight marginal equity.
Team for Habib's last words. Anything from team? Last words. Very last
Failed to highlight marginal equity, which was the basic crux of the question.
So So as you can see that all of you have spoken.
One more. He's there.
Okay.
He's left.
Oh,
One
right.
is there. One.
Right.
Devnath.
Great. Yeah, you may, yes.
Right. Hello everybody, I'm Shogrodip Devnath. I'm from Jalpur University. I'm the closing opposition speaker of the house today. I'll take one tap at every minute, if that's fine. Yeah, sorry.
So one tap every minute.
I'll start on a self count of 3, 2, and 1. They say guns don't kill people, those holding the guns do. Too bad those people didn't go away, handed the proposition even bigger guns, and they came to this debate, right? Debaters are even in India, where the union minister says, the Anurag Thakur says, that oh, there are people who are professional protesters, the Andolan Jivi, essentially delegitimizing protester Tyson. My grandfather called me an Akel, meaning an intellectual person, when I told them that I am going to a workshop on gender sexual minority representation in labor codes, because we care about marginalized groups, we care about vulnerable people, we actively care about the empowerment of these high stakeholders in this debate. To start out with rebuttals, the previous speaker mentioned about 22,000 crores for rooftop solars. I would like you to know that there are 3 kinds of lies. Lies, damned lies, statistics. There are a number of execution gaps, including 10% of Prime Minister Surya Ghar targeting met historically. No power diversity coming 20% units and land diversions for TERI statistics. Meaning that if you had to use 1.5 hours to actually read real articles and not ChatGPT, you would actually know that implementation compliance actively failed on your side of the house. Second rebuttal is all the arguments about how 20,000 crores CPUs. I would like to explain this using an analogy, right? Meaning that understand that imagine Gen Z gets this really high modern looking mansion, right? And that mansion has a rooftop which is collapsing, which can be integrated to air quality. And we have a heating system which is an ancient massive coal furnace. Proposition suggests that building a massive expansion vacuum system with our CCUs to suck the smoke out of the air before it leaves the chimney, right? Entire problem with this entire thing is that in order to save the traditional infrastructural development, to essentially completely negating the pollution control which is there, right? Meaning that in the analogy, the Gen Z develop chronic respiratory issues because the rooftop is still open and Gen Z is then forced to pay a 3% tax hike now for a filter that is being used for the CCUs. At the same time, they have to pay for the medical bills because they don't know how to breathe properly in the long run, right? Next, understand that there are, like I mentioned, a lot of regulatory problems, right? Here I want you to know that while NITI Aayog protects long-term capital-intensive projects, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has seen a relatively stagnation in real-time funding, meaning that they promised Gen Zers a green 2070, but what about the urban heat island? What about the stress crisis of 2026? Because even as the budget promotes renewability, the Ministry of Coal records pre-production hikes, meaning that when these Gen Zs will eventually take over the stake of the entire nation, they will inherit a devalued coal infrastructure that will be responsible. Then they will be the one who is responsible for the decommissioning of this entire thing, meaning that our earnings aren't in our hands in the long run. Secondly, I want you to note that historically it has been a problem. In the future, it is going to be a problem. Then why do they care about this entire thing at all? I want you to highlight that Sumit Dada mentioned, rebuttal question, budget for allocation, execution is outside ambit. Well, I would like you to know that previous CAG reports on the National Clean Energy Fund have actually highlighted that these diverted funds are often used to balance the fiscal deficit in the long run. Meaning that there is a loss of industrial opportunity in these high forest covered areas. Meaning that Gen Zs have to choose between either optimally economically surviving in the long run or preserving the environment in the long run. And that trade-off is unfavorable for the long-term sustainable development, who are the major stakeholders in this debate today. Finally, I want you to know sovereign green bond mirage. Green bonds, which the SEBI or the RBI are yet to finalize, by the way, because they have no legal mandate over it, they have no economic burst and actively telling you, oh, this is legal, legit, valid. That is the entire problem with this entire policy implementation. RBI has yet to finalize these bonds, which are frequently utilized for optimistic projects that have a lot of bad ecological footprints. such as large-scale hydros in fragile Himalayas. Finally, what is the impact of this? Meaning that by issuing 30 years green bond, the government is essentially borrowing against the future earnings of Gen Z to currently fund the technology that exists today that might be obsolete within the next decade. We have a really bad future ahead of us if you were to vote for side government today. Thank you.
So first of all, you mentioned in your speech that there are three types of lies, damn lies, and then statistics. And the very fact that you use them in your own speech explains your stand, your very own stance. So my question to you would be like, you have mentioned about CCU's 20,000 crore that I have, probably I don't know how you came in about my inculcation of ChatGPT into my script, I don't know how, but you said that I have used that from ChatGPT and 20,000 inculcation of CCUs. Global emissions and all those stuff. So first of all, there should be a change in the whole ecosystem if we are bringing about the change to breathing issues, right? So what is your alternative on the situation? Because we cannot shift our plans ऐसे तुरंत नहीं कर सकते. We cannot shift it तुरंत. So like, what are your alternatives on this point? Because like vaguely mentioning about some, this is actually very
Right.
So, before you answer, I would just summarize the whole point. It is simply that
But I
when
didn't
you
ask for summarization. So I
yeah, I have to summarize because then you'll have some other context and then you will again give this, and then the side proposition. So, better to give a summary. Right. So, the thing that he was asking about that for CCUS, the fact that we are allocating this much and then again we are paying tax and again we are having breathing issues, which was the problem that you were stating, right? The fact that there is no alternative means through which we can have power generation in the first place. Right, we have to integrate the alternative measures from which we can generate power in our country so that we can make sure that we are not dependent on fossil fuels. So if that is not there in the first place, then welcome to a dark place and you are shouting and debating with me and there is no light, there is no microphone. Right, so first of all we have to integrate that, and for that to happen it will take a long time. So for the immediate measure of 20,000 crores, we are making sure that the implications of air pollution is very less in the first place, and then we can go on for countering that. So for that,
Right.
Last words.
Yeah, last words. But like a few more, much time more because
Not too much.
not too much. Yeah, I got 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Just joking, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's start. Firstly, the statistical thing, right? Actually, it's so funny because that entire statistics was stolen by me by this individual named Shridash Gupta, an alumni of St. Xavier's College itself, who mentioned it in one of his speeches, and I thought that was extremely relevant in this case. Why so? Understand that if I were to draw a Venn diagram and tell you that every single person who has played Russian roulette, for example, the gun thing, and if you were to like find out what is the success rate of it, it will come 100%. Because the people who have survived Russian roulette is the sample size, right? Meaning that if you are giving a statistical evaluation of something, you have to give out the entire whole thing as a whole. I countered the CCU's part because the very effectiveness, implementation, regulatory compliance is a problem in and of itself, because statistics shows that you have failed in countering that measure. Finally, the very concept, CCUs, what is the alternative? Make compliance better and then don't completely cut out or slash out the budget for air pollution, because that is a pertinent issue for the future stakeholders. Last sentence is that the very concept of privilege, concept of vulnerable and marginalized groups is subjective, meaning that I am a privileged person in more than one ways, but I can still be an unelite, a poor and marginalized communities in the other. Those are intersectional concepts in and of itself, meaning that somebody who is homeless is going to survive, is going to suffer from air pollution and water pollution much more than I am going to, because I have followed that mechanism within it. Meaning that you cannot completely take fund from this X and put it to Y and then hope for the best in terms of allocation, because there are a lot of people who are not countering to or catering to on your side of the house. Thank you.